For our next story, let us go to the state of New York, where a family came across a mysterious suitcase in their new home. The family found this old suitcase in the attic of their new home. They had no idea what was inside it. So the dad decided to open it up. It had been sitting there for decades. But once he opened it, they all regretted it, because inside this dusty old suitcase were photos. Lots and lots of photos. All these photos were from 1947, and the most shocking thing is that these photos are from the same house they just bought. These people in the pictures are actually the previous owners of the house, and they were sitting in the exact same spot in the attic where this suitcase was found. But that's not the most interesting part yet. There is so much more to this story. You will be shocked. Keep watching to find out what happens next. These people found the perfect house. This beautiful old house has been in the family for generations. But now, it was time to move on. So the family put their house up for sale. Soon enough, someone knocked on the door. A young couple wanted to see the house because they were looking to buy a house. The man opened the door and invited them in. He showed them around the entire house. They loved it. The young couple immediately made an offer. The man accepted. In less than a week, the deal was done, and the young couple officially became the new owners of this big house. They started by cleaning out the backyard. They picked up all the trash and cut the grass. Then they headed over to the attic. This attic was huge. It had everything you can imagine. Boxes, furniture, lamps, you name it. They weren't interested in most of the stuff here, but there was one thing that really caught their eye. An old dusty suitcase. It looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. They had no idea what was inside. So the man decided to open it up. To his surprise, the suitcase wasn't locked. He lifted the lid up and started looking through it. Inside this old suitcase was nothing but photos. It must have been at least 1,000 photos in here. He took out one photo after another. The photos were yellowing with age. Had no idea who these people even were. Then he took out one photo in particular. On the back of the photo, he could see some writing. He held the photo up in front of the light and started reading. My family, in 1947. He couldn't believe his eyes. That's when it hit him. These people are the former owners of the house. But why did they leave all their photos behind? What happened to them? Were they still alive? He showed the photos to his wife. She couldn't believe her eyes either. She said, "Wow, this is incredible. We should try and find out what happened to them." He nodded. Before they knew it, they had spent hours looking through these photos. They learned so much about the history of the house. They saw the former owners celebrating birthdays, holidays, and other special occasions, but something was off. They couldn't help but notice that there was one person missing. Where were the parents? They saw photos of the children, but they never saw any photos of the mother or father. Maybe they were divorced or something. Maybe they didn't know the parents. Or maybe the parents were dead. Then they came across one final photo. This photo was different from all the others. Instead of showing a happy family, this photo showed a very sad family. The man was holding two coffins. The coffins were for the two kids. Next to them, there was a woman. This woman was crying her eyes out. She was the mother. But what happened to the father? Was he also dead? The man and his wife felt bad for these people. It must have been so painful to lose both your children, they said. I hope we can find out what happened to them. I wonder if they're still alive. The man and his wife decided to do some digging. They went online and searched for the family's name. They also searched for the address. But it seemed like this family literally vanished into thin air. No one knew what happened to them. Then the man had a great idea. Said, we should visit the cemetery. Maybe we can find out how they died, and maybe we can pay their graves a visit. His wife loved the idea. She said, "That's brilliant. I can't believe we didn't think of this sooner." They drove to the local cemetery. They walked past hundreds of graves until they finally found it. The family's grave was right behind a big oak tree. It had a nice view. They stood in front of the grave for a while, paying their respects. Then they sat down on a nearby bench. That's when they noticed a loose headstone. One of the headstones was slightly loose. The man decided to push it open. He pushed and shoved until it fell over. But underneath the headstone there was nothing. The man and his wife looked at each other in shock. This isn't right. Where are their remains? They called the police. The police showed up and started investigating. An officer even came out to inspect the scene, but no one knew what to do. Eventually the police left, and the man and his wife went home. But now they couldn't stop thinking about what happened to the remains. The man said, "We can't just leave their remains missing. We have to do something." His wife agreed. So they came up with a plan. They would dig up every part of their yard to find the remains. They would bring the family home. They started in the backyard. They used a metal detector to find any underground metal objects. They dug up large parts of their yard. But unfortunately, they didn't find anything. Just when they were about to give up, they heard something. It sounded like a knock. They followed the sound until they got to their shed. Inside their shed, they found a hole. The hole was covered in dirt. They cleaned the dirt off and started digging. It led to a tunnel. The tunnel was very dark and narrow. They brought in a flashlight and slowly made their way through. At the end of the tunnel, they found a small wooden box. They opened up the box and found two smaller coffins. They were made out of metal. The man and his wife couldn't believe their eyes. Could this be the missing children? They brought the coffins home and placed them on the table. The man said, "We have to open them up." His wife was against it. She said, "No, we can't do that. It would be disrespectful." But the man wouldn't listen. He wanted to know for sure. The man opened up the first coffin. Inside was a little boy. He looked no older than 6. The second coffin contained the girl. She looked about 8 years old. It really was them, but how did they die? How did they end up buried in the backyard? The man and his wife were shocked. They didn't know what to do. They called the police again, but this time they took the coffins with them. The police were surprised. They had no idea what happened here. It seemed like a normal family home. Why would someone kill their own children? As the investigation continued, the police found out some shocking details. It turned out that the father was a Nazi spy. He was spying on the U.S. government. When the government found out, they took away his passport and his money. They basically kept him hostage in his own home. He couldn't leave or he would get shot. The father was desperate. He didn't want to live like this anymore, so he did the unthinkable. He took his own children's lives. After he did this, he took his own life. He was found dead in the backyard. He shot himself. The mother survived, but she went insane. She lived in a mental hospital for the rest of her life. The man and his wife were shocked. They couldn't believe this evil man lived in the same house as them. They decided to tear down the house and build a new one. The children received a proper burial. In the end, this family got justice. But now it's time for you to make your voice heard. Click the comment section down below and let me know what you think about this story. Also, before you go, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Until next time, my friends, take care.